Join host Charisma Eve on a journey of self-discovery, empowerment, and unapologetic authenticity. In each episode, Charisma dives deep into conversations, exploring what it truly means to embrace oneself fully and live life with genuine charisma. From personal anecdotes to interviews, Unapologetically Me is a space where vulnerability meets strength, where listeners are encouraged to celebrate their uniqueness and step into their power without reservation. Tune in for inspiring stories, practical tips, and a dose of unfiltered wisdom as Charisma Eve guides you towards embracing your most authentic self. It's time to own your truth and live unapologetically. And now your host, Charisma Eve.
Good evening, kings and queens. I hope that you are having a wonderful day. I hope that you've had a wonderful day today. This is Charisma Eve, and I am unapologetically me. I hope that your day has been blessed, and this is our fourth week. We've been talking about quite a few things, and I know that the topic that I have to share with you today is something that we all can talk about, even if it's not something that you have embarked upon just yet. It's probably something that you are either thinking about or possibly wondering if you want to look at doing in the future, and that is marriage. So I myself am I have been married for 37 years. 37 years. And I got married to my wonderful husband, John, on October the 16th, 1987. 1987. That is a long time ago. He was actually 23 and I was 21. Folks, let me tell you, I love him today more than I did 37 years ago. And I say that because we were both kids. I didn't know what love was, and neither did he. You know, and I look at the generation that is coming up these days, and I was just telling my niece yesterday, I think that when these young people get engaged these days, that's probably as far as they want to go. They put the ring on the finger, and they don't want to go any further, because that is as far as they want to take it when you talk about relationships. But, when we were coming up back in our days, of course, we're talking about the Bible Belt down here in the Virginia, Georgia, South Carolina area. And, we wanted to, I'm a church girl. I'm a PK. My dad was a pastor. So I was one of those girls that desired to get the white dress and walk down the aisle, and of course I would tell any young woman these days, don't cheat yourself. Don't cheat yourself, and, you know, just get the ring. And I'm going to just say it, give the young man the cookie and stop there. Get the white dress. Don't, get the white dress, have the wedding, and walk through and stick with the wedding and stick with the marriage. And stick, when I say stick with the marriage, stick with the marriage. A lot of people ask me, when they ask me, Andrea, how long have you and John been married? Especially a lot of the young people that I go to church with. How long have you and John been married? And I say 37 years. And we still hold hands when we walk. And we still practice PDA. I mean, not all the time, but we still give a little sugar in public, and we still hug. Like last week was his birthday. And oh my God, Sunday I had his birthday dinner and it was amazing because he is my king and I love him. I love him so much. But they look at us like we have four heads, you know, because we still hold hands and do things like that. And they ask me, how do we still have that kind of affection? But we have been through a lot. We've been through a lot in 37 years. And yes, we still have our little ups and downs. And yes, he still gets on my nerves. And yes, I get on his. But in 37 years, um, I have gotten sick with different illnesses, and this has been my longest stench, like I was telling you guys a couple of weeks ago with MS. I have been in and out of the hospital, and you're talking about when you take a vow, you know, like I told you guys a few minutes ago, I'm a church girl, and the Bible says if you vow a vow to God, defer not to pay it. Well, when you take that vow and it says in sickness and in health, John has been to the hospital with me at times and slept on the floor when I had to be in the hospital. You know, um, he has been to the hospital when I've had to be in the hospital for 8 days at a time. And he has just been there for me. And it's been times that have been very, very difficult when I couldn't hardly walk. You know, he's had to do things like bathe me before. I mean, when you take those vows, you don't imagine things like this. Like when I got married in 87, I was 21 years old. I was fully 100% in good health. I never thought that I would be broke down to the point where my husband would have to bathe me. He would have to clothe me. But when he took those vows, that was something that God knew that might possibly happen. And that's why it's a part of those vows. Marriage is a team. It's like a team. And he was on vacation last week. Part of the team is helping to clean up and helping to do yard work and housework. It's a team. It's a team effort. And I think like when people get married, they just they think it's about sex. It's all about sex, right? I heard Eddie Murphy say this, and I want to share this with you. It was like really funny to me, but it's very profound. So this is what he said. Check this out. He said that marriage is um like a cracker. He said when you get married, you think you have a Ritz cracker. And he said, you get with that Ritz cracker and that Ritz cracker. Oh, it is so good and so buttery and so good tasting. He said, and you're with it for a long time. And then over a period of time, it loses its butteriness and it loses its saltiness and it doesn't taste as good. And then all of a sudden you look over in the bed and it's a saltine and it doesn't taste the same. And then you go out and you start to seek after another type of you start to look for another Ritz cracker, right? So I'm listening to this, and he said you go out and you get another Ritz cracker, and all of a sudden, wow, you get this Ritz cracker, and it's like, bam, this is what I've been looking for. It's so good and it's so buttery and it just tastes so good. This is what I've been looking for all along, and I've been missing this. So you leave the cracker that you had along that old saltine, you just kick it to the curb, and you get with this new Ritz cracker that you have, and it's buttery and got freshness and it just pop in your mouth and blah, blah, blah and all of this, right? He said, and you get with this new Ritz cracker and all of a sudden you just get with it and you stay with it. And then all of a sudden down the road, you look over and it's what? It's just a cracker. And he had me cracking up. But the funny part was he said, and y'all, I'm not going to be vulgar like he was because y'all know Eddie Murphy can be vulgar. But he said, when you get with that cracker, whether it's a Ritz or a saltine, a cracker is just a cracker. And I thought to myself, this has been years ago. I heard him tell this joke, but it was so profound because a cracker is a cracker, whether it's a Ritz or a saltine. And I was like, dang, that is so true. So when he said that, I said, you know what? I'm going to remember that because that is so profound. Even if you leave a woman or a man and get with another woman or a man, whether it's one sexual body part or another, it's the same. It's the same. And so I love my husband and I look at my marriage as a, my marriage is, what do I always say? My marriage is like oh shoot, now I forget. But it's like well, I'll remember. I'll start. Sometimes that happened to me, when I'm talking. It's an investment because I have invested, first of all, 37 years of my life. And if I live to see December 24th, I'll be 59. So I've invested over half of my life into this marriage. Why would I want to leave this man and go and invest some more time with somebody else? It's ridiculous. I don't see myself doing that, right? I just can't see myself doing that. And so I think like this. Once I have invested, we have been to different places in the world. We've traveled and we've spent time together. And I think like this, if I was to do that, I would find myself comparing somebody else to John. John doesn't do it like that. John, that person is not sweet like John. And so then I asked myself, what would be the reason that I would want to start all over again? I just don't think it's necessary. So once you have invested all of this time, whether it be 10 years, whether it be 15, 20 years, whether it be 30 years or whatever, I'm not going to do that. Now that's just for me, but my marriage is an investment. And I just, I love him more now than I did when I got married. Why? Number one, I'm more mature now than I was back then, and I know what love is. And I love me more. See, as you grow, you get to know more about love and loving yourself. And a friend of mine said to me, I said, well, my husband is really too good for me. And she said, what do you mean he's too good for you? I said, well, he's too good for me to just, you know, I don't know. I just don't know if I want to stay married. She said, well, he too good for you. You too good for him. And she put some thought on my mind. This was early on in my marriage, early on, like 5 years. You know, you get to think about things. And one of the things that I was telling a young lady the other day that I've kind of mentored since she got married. One of the best things that you can do in your marriage is keep people out of it. Family, friends. If you got a problem with your husband and your wife, talk it out. You know, one of the, I think, best things that we have done is talk it out. Try not to go to bed mad. We've never gone to bed mad at each other. You know, pray, pray about it. And those are just some of the things that have kept us together, because you've got to have something at the center, at the core of your relationship to keep you together if you want to be together. And it's just not, it's not, just going and sleeping around is not the answer. It's just not the answer. Going from one bed to another, sleeping around, because you got to get up. I know I heard this guy say, first the butt, then what? And that was another profound saying, because once after you get up, then you got to go back home. That song that I think it was it Kelly Price that sung that song? Um, that song about it's morning and we slept the night away. And then you got to get up and you got to go home to your wife or your husband, and you got to think about what you did last night. And you got to think about that person's face, and you got to feel that guilt, and you got to ask yourself, was that worth it? Man, it's not worth it. It's just not worth your relationship and all the time that you put into your marriage. Because then you got to go home and you got to look at your significant other. And then you got to look at yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, do you want to tell your husband or your wife what you did last night? I ain't trying to live like that. I ain't trying to live like that. Some people want to live their life like that, but I'm not one of them. So, I'm not saying I'm perfect, but I love my relationship the way it is. We have been through some things, and by God's grace, if we see October the 16th, we will celebrate 37 years together. And I love my marriage. I have I've tried to see about having some seminars at our church because we need it. You know, um, because that old devil, he's always there to get you to run behind somebody else's husband or get another woman to run behind yours. And you have to have something to solidify what you call yours. And I know that this man, God gave him to me. And I plan to keep him. And it's not a physical thing. What we have is spiritual. But you both have to know that. And I think he does too. So I just hope, that there's something that I can say that'll make you think. I don't have all the answers, but I want to share something with you over these few 15 or 20 minutes that has been shared with me that will make you think and give you something to ponder over that you might get off of the podcast and say, you know what? That makes sense. Because we are living in a time where there's so much wickedness, so much diversity, so much. There's so much that you can do to yourself, to your relationship, that will make you say, I don't want to be married anymore. And then you go away and you're alone, and you mess yourself up, and then you're trying to figure out how you get back to where you were. Well, you don't have to do that. You just don't have to do that. I'm here to tell you today, before you make that mistake, think about some of the things that I've said today. Think about the scenario that I gave you that Eddie Murphy talked about with the cookie. I mean, not the cookie, but the cracker. That thing is so profound. Think about the song that I was singing a little bit of. I don't know all the words, but just think about, is it worth it to lay down with somebody else's husband or wife and have to get up and go home and look at your husband or your wife and wonder whether or not it was worth it? Because first the butt, then what? That's another thing. Just think about some of those things before you go out and make that mistake. Because marriage is a beautiful thing. If it wasn't, God wouldn't have designed it for us to have. It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful friendship. It's a beautiful teamship. Teamship's not a word, but it's something beautiful to have. And yeah, you're gonna have your ups and downs. My mom used to say tongue and teeth gonna fall out, but they still in the same mouth together. I don't know where she got that from, but if you both are willing to tough it out, you can stick it out together. I do know of relationships that have endured um, adultery. Both parties have made mistakes, and they have agreed to not do it again, and they have stuck it out. So it just depends on what each party wants out of the relationship and how much they love each other. So I hope that, like I said, I've said something that you might be able to take away. And even if you're not married, if you're in a relationship, like I told my nephew earlier, he said, "Well, Auntie, I'm not married." Well, you're in a relationship. You don't have to be married. You live with a man. You chose to live with somebody. The same thing. But I'm not gonna talk y'all head off tonight. I can. I really can. But I'm gonna say good night. This is Charisma E, being unapologetic with me. I just am. I can't help myself. But I love you all. And until next week, when I come back to you with something else, I hope that is just as refreshing for your ears. God bless you. Have a wonderful evening. Good night.
Thank you for joining Unapologetically Me, Charisma Eve. Please like, share, and subscribe, and join us every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time for another exciting episode wherever you listen to your podcast.